Hello. Welcome. This is my talk, Bechdel IO. I got 15 minutes. We just gonna jump right into it. But the small print for this talk is how we made JavaScript to make film more inclusive, right? Using code to help make media more inclusive, or at least analyzing it, right? This is a talk I typically do with my sister. She's a PhD candidate. She uses some of the research and code I built for this to work on this project, but whatever. Let's jump in, huh? Okay, so first question. What do all these films have in common? Social Network, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, Citizen Kane, right? These are all some of like the biggest, most beloved films of all time. But I'm sure this is a shocker to you. None of these films pass the Bechdel test. If you don't know what the Bechdel test is, you're going to get educated real quick. We'll get there. Don't worry. All right. So first things first. Okay, perfect. Let's jump into the agenda here. What is the Bechdel test? Then we're going to be talking about a project I built, Bechdel.io. It's live right now. You can go check that out. And yeah. And then lastly, we're going to be talking about lessons learned from the project. Oops. And next steps in the community, like based on the findings we found from that work. So first things first, what's the dang Bechdel test, huh? So allow me to mansplain the Bechdel test for you. This talk usually goes much better with my sister joining me to give it, but hey, what can you do? You know, you're just gonna have to listen to me mansplain feminist film theory to you for a couple seconds. So I can't see you right now, but if you're giving this face right now, I totally understand. Great. Yeah, it's been about 0 days since we've been mansplained to, so I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, everyone. But it's a little history. Bechdel Test was created by a Swedish comic called Alison Bechdel in 1985 for her comic Dykes to Watch Out For. We'll go through the comic real fast. It's from a comic called The Rule, and basically it's about two girls going to a movie theater, and they are trying to figure out what they want to see, right? And one of the ladies has a requirement. The film has to have at least 2 women in it. So rule 1, there has to be 2 female characters. And that 2 talk to each other about something that is not 3 a man or men. And they make a joke about how Alien was the last thing, right? So all those films I showed you was, right, Citizen Kane, Harry Potter, Toy Story. All these films, they do not pass the Bechdel test. It means they do not have more than 2 named female characters have a conversation with each other about something that's not a man or men. Oh shit, right? Wild, right? Okay, so it's pretty simple. It's 3 rules, and usually when I get to this point, people start having really strong feelings about the Bechdel test, and I just want to like get ahead of it a little bit. I just want to get a little ahead of what the Bechdel test is and what it isn't. So before you judge, let me ask you just one thing. Did you enjoy Return of the Jedi? But you're like, not crazy about those Ewoks at the end, right? I don't know about you, I'm in that camp. Return of the Jedi, great film. Ewoks, they're for kids, I hate them. But if you can understand this, then you can understand feminist film criticism. What? Right? What we're saying here is a film can still be good despite its weaker elements. This is the fundamental tenet of film criticism in general, right? But for some reason, when we start talking about feminist film theory, people get a lot of emotions. They get a lot of feelings about it, and they, Bechdel test can do this, and it can't do that, and did you consider this? Yes, yes, yes. Yes, we totally agree, but this is a lens for us to view film. It's not the only one. It's not a dictation of its quality. It's a lens to film it and analyze it. That's it, right? That being said, I do want to say the Bechdel test is not a perfect test. That's okay. It's not the perfect test. Let me give you an example. So the Bechdel test, like any metric, can be gamed. So for example, I like to use the example of 2 female characters having a conversation. They could be talking about something like a lamp or salad. This technically passes the Bechdel test, but it does not insinuate that these are like well-formed female characters with depth, right? The Bechdel test is literally the bare possible minimum that female characters are used for more than a sexy lamp in a movie. So if they're talking about something, right, it doesn't mean it's perfect. The other thing that people don't strongly consider, or often, is that the Bechdel test does not consider the full gender binary. We're only considering at least female identifying characters. That's it. It doesn't, but the Bechdel test currently does not look at non-binary characters. So it's not perfect. It's not great, but I think you can understand the basics of film feminism. I think we can do it. I think we can do it, right? All right, so we got the basics out of the way. We know what the Bechdel test is. Cool, right? Got those 3 rules. I want to talk about a little program I collaborated on with my sister Laurel called Bechdel.io. All right, so let's jump into it. I like jumping into a little bit of practical code. I don't like doing too much because everyone's eyes start to glaze over. Also, we only have 15 minutes, so we're going to try our best to get through this here. But my sister and I collaborated on a little project called Bechdel.io. But what it is a program I wrote where you upload film scripts and we analyzed your film scripts to tell you whether it passes the Bechdel test or not. All right, we can upload a script, we can do a bunch of stuff. It's super cool. We can actually, and we do a bunch of gender-based analytics on that film, right? We can determine the gender of the director and the writers and producers and how much dialogue are given to each gender, et cetera, right? Which I think is really helpful for us analyzing films in this format. Also, fun fact, this is the only programmatically way of massively analyzing films for whether pass the Bechdel test. There is a site, I think it's called BechtelTest.com. Great site, love it. It's mostly discussion forum, and people are just debating whether films actually pass the Bechdel test or not. Totally valid, but this one is programmatically, you can analyze massive amounts of film super quickly using this method. So, all right, let's jump into like a little bit how this works, okay? I want to just first start with a snippet of a film script. Also, if you're in the chat here, let me know if you know what movie this is from. I'll give you a hint. It's from 2015, and it was a Best Picture nominee that year. Okay, so great thing about film scripts is that there's a specified format of how to write them. And because of that, it makes it incredibly easy for us to write code that analyzes them because it follows these rules, right? So we just write code that figures out where the rules are, and we can do different stuff with it. So the first thing we need to figure out is where each scene begins and ends. This is important because we need to figure out which characters are having a conversation within that scene. So we're breaking up the scenes, and in film scripts, you have these enter and exit keywords that set the scene and the location and time of day, or maybe some other rules about that, right? So I'm looking for this keyword like int, ent. There's a whole bunch of them. I basically just plug them in and I look for those, right? So we've identified we have a brand new scene taking place here in the kitchen. The next thing we need to do is identify the gender of all the characters in that scene. So you can see here we have Samantha, Mason, and Mom all in this scene, okay? So what we're doing here is actually, we use the IMDb API. We go out and we go to that movies page and we figure out who the actor or actresses are playing these characters in the movie. And using the person who's playing it, we can identify what this gender of the person is. We're going to talk about in a second where this becomes problematic, but for this point right now, we're just using what gender that person identifies on their IMDb page to dictate the gender of what they are in that film. So Samantha and Mom are played by women, and Mason is played by a boy. We're able to identify that there are in fact 3 characters, 2 females, and 1 male in this particular scene. All right, cool. So now at least one of those rules of the Bechdel test has been passed. Great. So what's next? We have to do, oh yeah, we're good. We got 1, 2 characters. Cool, we're satisfied. Hard part. This is the hardest part. We need to identify, did they discuss a man or men in the scene? So we're going to go through, and what we do is we look for keywords that signify they're discussing a man or men. And look at this. Mom is discussing dad with Samantha. Does not pass, right? They're having a discussion about a man or men. So the scene does not pass the Bechdel test. One key thing you might notice here, though, too, is, and that we struggled with while designing this, was patriarchal keywords are actually deeply ingrained in our system, like our vocabulary. Makes it hard to use, right? If you notice here, we have the word sir in here. Yes, sir, mother, sir. Samantha says to Mom. Now, this is hard because it's kind of a joke, right? She's calling her mom a sir because making a joke. She's like in the military, right? Her mom's the whatever that is, the color, I don't know. I'm not a military guy, but you know what I mean. Like the guy who's dictating, telling everyone what to do. But they're not actually discussing a man. This gets into a key point about how patriarchal keywords are so deeply ingrained in our society. And I do have ideas for how to fix this, but it is a hard problem for us to solve. Okay, so that's an overview, how we built it. I'm actually going to show you the code. The code will be linked at the end if you do want to jump in. It's amazing. You'll find some interesting named function names, I think, if you go jump in that code base. So we talked about what the Bechtel test is. We discussed my sister and I's collaborative project, Bechdel.io. And now I want to just talk about lessons learned. What do we learn here? What's next? How can we apply this better to tech in general, right? So first things, we learned patriarchal keywords, deep ingrained in our vocabulary. We just talked about that. I'm not going to spend too much time on that. But so our app currently does not work with transgender characters. So because we're taking the identified character from their IMDb page, the gender that they identify with on their IMDb, that makes it difficult for us because in some films, different gendered characters play different genders. So like, for example, on Jeffrey Tambor on the TV show Transparent, right? On his IMDb page, he's a man, but he plays a woman in that show. So that currently does not work there. It's definitely a known point. Also, so this whole field of study generally falls under the study of digital humanities. I just want to call this out because I think that this is a field that is desperately not served or like not noticed by the developer community. It's basically using our technical talents to analyze film, media, and art. I feel like everyone's trying to make a to-do app or an event app or like a restaurant finder app, but like, fuck that, right? Like, this makes some like, let's find a new way to analyze Shakespeare. Let's do some data visualization that no one's thought of before. Let's take some classic media we all love and find a new way to appreciate it. You know what I mean? Or like give it context today. It's tricky because a lot of people in the humanities don't have the technical talents that the people watching this conference have, right? Like, it's something that we can do, and they're looking for you, and you're probably looking for projects. I just think there's such a huge thing here, and I would love to see more work coming from our community, like helping look at this work in new ways. And our goal here too is to like be able to like look at work, like look at film through this lens, right? And like shine a light on it, right? Like, I think that that's important. I think that's huge. I think we have a huge opportunity to be able to do that. Also, just a fun little fact. Lori Voss of NPM, formerly of NPM, he has a Bechtel test for code. Interesting, huh? Does your code project pass the Bechtel test? So this is, according to Lori, this is a function written by another function, or a function written by a woman, and that function written by a woman is called by another woman who is writing another function, right? So like, it's functions being written by female developers and being used by them, having a conversation, which I kind of love. But challenge to you, do you think that your company's code base, or even any that you contribute to, do any of them pass the Bechdel test? And if they don't, is that a problem? I'll give you a hint, it is. It is a problem. Okay, so if you want to follow any of the resources here, I have a QWERTY code in the lower left-hand corner here if you want to go check that out. It basically has all linked to resources, slides, video, and whatever. If you want to check out the actual website, Bechdel.io, you can check out the case study my sister worked on based on this work, source code, all this other stuff too. Yeah, all right. Questions. I'm going to be in the chat answering questions. Hit me up. If you like this at all, you should be sure to follow me. I work for MongoDB. I'm a developer advocate and software engineer. You can catch me on all the socials. The best one to probably get a hold of me on, though, is Twitter. That's at Joe Karlsson at the number 1, or just Joe Karlsson 1. But I'd love to see you there too. And lastly, if I said anything controversial here today, just know all opinions are my own, not my employer's. Please don't fire me. What? Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, I had a blast being here today. Woohoo! Thank you. Bye.